a kickback.
Pretty much.
I didn't vote for it.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council special meeting of Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. Two items on the agenda. The first of these is a presentation and discussion of the Andrews Park Master Plan. Yes, that's you guys.
Yes. Well, I'm Kayla Copeland, landscape architect and owner of Copeland Design Collective. We were selected by the city and we're honored to be able to present the Andrews Park Master Plan deal today. I'd like to start with introducing our team and then I'll jump into the presentation. So with me, I have my partner, Evelyn. She's a landscape designer. And then we have Tori.
I'll join if you want me to.
Tori Butzer with Butzer Architects. And then Brett as well with Garber. And not with us today, our partners RDG, who you might be familiar with, doing the comprehensive plan right now for the city of Norman. But we have a stellar rockstar team that just fell in love with Andrews Park and the history that Andrews Park has. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Andrews Park, as y'all may know, has always been a part of the city. It has been called the city park since 1889, around the land run time frame. So it historically has had a lot of history, a lot of family activities, and a heart for recreation as well. Music has always been a part of this, agriculture. A lot of different programs have been a part of Andrews Park. And our goal with this master plan was to reignite all those old, fun stories of Andrews Park. And that has been around since 1889. What we did is really focus on 5 phases when we're in the last phase of coming to you all to get your thoughts on what we've done and hopefully gain your trust and for adoption of Andrews Park Master Plan. But to create a diverse project that represents all of Norman, your Parks Department here is excellent, and they really had a vision for wanting to listen to the people and wanting to listen and hear out the leadership here with city staff. So through that, we had an open house with public engagement. We also had a stakeholder group that was hand-selected also by the city leadership and Parks Department. And we got a lot of feedback through those 2 events. And then also we went to the city managers meeting and listened and heard the concerns and comments from the city managers. So ultimately what I'm saying is this is very vetted and really focused on what the community is desiring and dreaming for Andrews Park. Now I'll walk through a couple of these steps and phases with you all in a little bit more detail. So we started with data collection. With this, we focused on hydrology in the park, as you can see on the map. This is just one of the many maps we created. We focused on opportunities and constraints. So a big opportunity we saw was where this park was located. It is in the heart of Norman, adjacent to downtown. It is also in between 2 major municipal complex, or the municipal library, or the public library, and the municipal complex. So these also have a lot of employees there. We're also in between 2 neighborhoods and off of the main Legacy Trail. All of these things make Andrews Park a very unique location and a node for everyone. We also looked at historical features. So this park is packed full of WPA elements. We did a lot of research on what is on the registry, what is not, what's highly important to keep and preserve. So what we found is that the amphitheater, the channel, the drainage channel, several of the bridges, and the 2 architectural elements right by the splash pad that kind of look like little castles. Those are historical bathhouses. Those are all the elements on the registry that we want to preserve and take a deeper dive into. The pavilion in the center is not on the registry, and that's important to know as we move forward. Other things we studied are the current events that happen there. Jazz in June was a major program that we honed into, and in fact had one of the leaders of that program on our stakeholder group. So her input was very vital. We learned, this historically has also had a baseball team in its history have games there in the open space, and it's now used for a lot of recreational practices still to this day. So that's important. The skate park is a major element, a big draw for the multi-generational skaters in the community. So all these kind of things we're looking at. How can we use this to develop the master plan? Next, we took all of our findings in the form of like a base map to the public. So we hosted what was originally called Picnic in the Park, but we got rained out. So we quickly had to problem solve and come indoors. We did everything we could to get people out. Social media blast. We did door knockers on all the neighborhood houses around the park, inviting them to this. We had banners in the park inviting everybody that drove by the park to come to the open house. So we did a major outreach and had a pretty good turnout for our public engagement. Here's some photos of our public engagement. To get a diverse park that everybody is engaged with and happy with, you have to have diverse feedback as well. So at our open house, we had several different stations, anything from kids engagement with a coloring sheet where they could actually illustrate their dreams for the park, to a sticker board full of amenities, getting quick feedback of what amenities people like, what themes people like, stuff like that. To the boards where we had a map on the table, and those that were brave and bold could grab a marker and actually draw on the map with us as well. Lots of different ways to get feedback, and the standard comment card for all the people that want to write their comments and get out of. We wanted to even accommodate them. And we had fun, lots of cookies, lots of people, lots of great discussion. Another form of public engagement was a stakeholder group. This was integrated into our design workshop, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. But this group was very diverse. Everything from family members of the Andrews family to those vested in current programming were all a part of this board. And so we had a great group of people for that as well. At the end of all of our public feedback, we really found 3 common goals and visions that the community wanted for Andrews Park. And you can see a long description on the board behind me. But ultimately, they wanted to preserve the history, but also flourish for the future. So they wanted to make sure the WPA elements and some of the programming historically that has been there stay there, and in fact are enhanced and grown for future generations. We're planning for the next 100 years, as someone did before us when the city park was first developed. We want to reactivate Andrews Park. So people wanted the park to feel safe. They wanted lots of programming opportunities that were diverse for many generations of any age to find their place here. And then we also wanted powerful connections, a focus on accessibility. Your community is very, very vocal about accessibility. And so that was a big deal, especially with some of our neighbors to this park. That's a very important connection. The connection to downtown, the connection to the employment opportunities close to the park, giving a passive release for them for lunch. These are all those powerful connections that we talked through. Which leads us to our design workshop. This was another phase of our project where the entire design team came and we moved into the city, one of their conference rooms next door in the development services area, and just completely took over a conference room. And there we had a 3-day workshop where we explored the park, walked through the park with the stakeholders. We dived in deep with creating a common vocabulary with our group of designers, the staff, and the stakeholders by looking at virtual parks. So we looked at Scissortail Park, the Gathering Place, and the station, and more. just to get some inspiration, talk about what we like and don't like. We did design charrettes for 2.5 days, coming up with hundreds of ideas, which you can see just a very small portion of them on the screen. Lots of sketching, lots of trace paper everywhere, markers everywhere. We really had a good time. We ended every day with a micro presentation where everybody shared their feedback and thoughts. It was an open conversation the entire 3 days we were there. And ultimately, we ended the design workshop with a master plan. These are some of the 25 program elements we came up with based off of the feedback from the public, the feedback from the stakeholders, and the design team. Again, we were all about listening to what people are wanting to see, understanding the vision and the dream the community has. And these are all program elements based off of those. Some big ideas to focus in on was we repurposed a lot of the WPA elements. We're keeping them, but giving them a new life, reimagining them a little bit different. And we heard a lot of feedback for the festivals, for the music, that the current stage orientation was not ideal. So how do we address that? Probably with a new stage, a new location. And then we also had a lot of feedback for conservation and plantings, all the way to water as well. How do we address that? So we had some really fun feedback and program elements that we implemented. And ultimately, we landed with a master plan that looks something like this. And I'm going to go to the next slide and explain it a little bit more. So our team took this master plan, which we presented to the stakeholder group the last day, got some feedback for some revisions, and this was the final master plan that we had today. Everybody will have this in front of them because I know it's kind of small on the screen. So I wanted everybody to be able to visually follow along, so I'm going to walk you through how we are reimagining our city park, Andrews Park. So I'll start in the southwest corner. So the southwest corner, don't have a laser pointer, but my cursor is kind of hovering over that southwest corner. This corner is where we're really honing into nature. This is going to be the most romantic, beautiful area of this park. We're trying to also focus on minimizing maintenance for the crews, so keeping it all in that corner condensed is really something that the grounds part of the park was really happy with. There's a vision for a Norman's first certified arboretum. And so right now it's starting already in the little triangle area. Currently Andrews Park, that's divided by Webster's Extension. We're also proposing removing that Webster Extension and reclaiming that as parkland. So you'll see, instead of having a separate triangle piece, now it's one unified park. So now traffic will just take Park Avenue instead of cutting through from Webster to Park Avenue. The amphitheater now is a lush, beautiful, tiered botanical garden, focused probably on Oklahoma improvement plants. That was something the city arborist was really passionate about. So we're taking the top half of the amphitheater, and instead of having seating, we're going to plant it in between where the grass strip is. And the bottom section of the amphitheater will remain a more intimate, smaller ceremony space with a stage at the bottom. So that way, we kind of imagine maybe an outdoor nature class or a wedding or something smaller, more intimate could happen here. And then overflow into this area where the current splash pad is, where we are reimagining the bathhouses to have a covered, beautiful pergola or something with a shade element. And that area becomes now a plaza for those small, intimate ceremonies or programs that would happen at the amphitheater. So the amphitheater and arboretum are now a learning opportunity focused on nature, but also very romantic for those more intimate ceremonies. And so if you can imagine that gorgeous amphitheater transformed with plantings, it just is breathtaking. So going north, it was very important to us. You can see item number 7, to have a connection to the neighborhood. So this is basically that neighborhood addressing, giving them that mid-block connection that takes them straight to the heart of the park, which is going to be met by a long berm, and that's connected to a central pavilion. So the central pavilion, shown at the south end of the larger circle lawn, will have a public restroom, which will serve the amphitheater guests and those in the lawn space. It'll have a concession area, but don't think of like a full-blown kitchen. It's more of just like serving, like you're bringing bag chips or hot dogs or something like that. So there's not necessarily like a major health requirement that the city would have to follow. It's very diverse in what it can be used for. You can sell hot chocolate out of it. Maybe there's a concert and they want to sell apparel. That's kind of the use of it. And then a large outdoor covered shaded dining picnic area. The berm is just adjacent to it, where it continues you along the west edge of that circle. This lawn space is large enough to accommodate 5 to 6 youth sport practices. Soccer, football, you name it. Flying kites, whatever you want. It's a very, very large area. I think it was around 3 acres. And then at the very top, at the apex of the circle, is what we are seeing as the new stage. So this is another beautiful architectural element inspired. Both of these, the lawn pavilion and the stage, would be inspired by the WPA architecture out there right now. So we're thinking very natural materials, pulling in those stones that the WPA structures already have, keeping that architectural inspiration to the WPA out there. But this stage would have a small green room, another public restroom, and some storage as well for the park. And that way, as they're programming this larger lawn space, they have a quicker way to store their supplies. For example, like the large blow-up TV screen they have for movie nights in the park. Along Acre Street, there's a small area right here for picnicking. That is kind of the thought of, we needed to make sure we could get a service vehicle in there for those larger programs when they need to set up, do the stage, lighting, audio, all of that. They have backstage access, and then a little outdoor lounge area basically. There's a mid-block crossing also connecting to the library. We were talking about how important it is to have the luck we have to have the large parking area of the library to the north and the large parking area for the municipal complex to the south for this overflow parking that could be needed for larger events and programming. So giving them a safe spot to cross across acres. This northwest or northeast corner is a pretty cool story too. So with James Garner Avenue getting redone, it has basically created this corner as a new gateway to downtown Norman, as people are passing from the north coming south into town. So we took this as an opportunity to really create a gateway entrance, something that really represents that goal that the community had of preserving history but flourishing in the future. So you'll see a large inspirational gateway with this WPA stone that takes inspiration actually from existing columns and in the park. So we're recreating it in a little bit modern flair. Right behind where the columns would be a outdoor spray jet play plaza. So that's where we are putting the new water play, giving some activation to the north side when there is programming at the stage. But also something fun we thought about is the story of the big Christmas tree the Parks Department has currently in this park and how sacred that program is to come light the tree, do the carols, do hot chocolate at the library. All of that now can happen on this corner, and maybe the splash pad could convert into an ice skating ring or something very fun. But the thought is the spray jets are this beautiful lit up moving backdrop to the new gateway, but also showing some life because kids could be playing there, people could be ice skating there, so you see the life of Andrews Park and the city of Norman on that corner as well for everybody driving by. Moving now down James Garner, the existing skate park, the park's recreation manager and their team has a huge vision for the skate park. The skate park is staying, and in fact, we want to enhance it for opportunity for more competitions and hosting more events. So the big request we had there was shaded bleacher seating, restroom access, stuff like that to make hosting a competition or event more comfortable and attract more people. So that's what we're proposing in between the skate park and the existing basketball courts. Just south of that, we are reimagining the playground. So it needs a little TLC on the tot lot. So our thought is we'll keep the new renovation of the accessible playground and just enhance it, relocate the tot lot into that, connect them better, make it more organic, and also make the tot lot accessible as well. That way it's a play area for all truly. And then us wrapping it around the basketball court also gave us this really nice centerpiece right in between the skate park, the basketball court, and the playground. Right in this area is a great space for a public restroom for those users. So that's kind of the thought there. The playground, of course, we looked at accommodating shaded picnic areas closer to the playground. So, kids can host birthday parties more comfortably, but also adding shade to the play area as well. One of the other larger fun elements I'm sure you see is the water that we're adding to Andrews Park. So I think it was the third slide I showed you, showed the hydrology data that we pulled. So majority of the south portion of Andrews Park is in the floodway. And a lot of the water is flowing through this park. So we took the opportunity to address that. And so now we're proposing the larger pond to be a retention pond, so this would be full year-round and become an amenity of the park. The 3 pond series to the north would be like a bio-retention, so they would help us capture water during a larger rain event and hold it to slow down the output of the water going down to the Canadian. So these are filtering the water as they're being held, and basically improving our water quality, which is really, really big as a part of transferring water throughout. We're pulling pollution out of the water. We have a boardwalk connection on this west edge of the larger pond. Also a mini dock for those that want to do a paddle boat or go fishing. The thought is this is a new activity in the park. Also a fun fact, this park used to historically have a swan pond that wrapped around the amphitheater. So we're kind of touching back on the history there too. On the west side of this boardwalk is a small series of rain gardens. This is for overflow as well if we get an extra large event. So this is something that also touches back on education of the park, so we can educate the community on alternative systems and new different plantings to create a more beautiful, sustainable environment. But also it's another filtering tool, which ultimately will distribute water into a dry creek bed that leads back into the WPA channel. So our goal here is to make a beautiful water element, a new program into the park, but also slow down water in a beautiful way, in an educational way, and filter it to make it a better water quality for the city. Along the south edge, we thought it was very important to connect to the urban environment in the downtown core, making that corner a little bit more urban. So this would be maybe a food truck court with some larger pavilions for those working downtown, or downtown for the music festival if they want to go to this area, which is a short 1 block walk. They can come have some food at lunch and just be outside. So that's what that corner is all about. And then one final thing with the master plan is that we took out all the large irregular parking lots and moved them to the edge. One of the big parts of this package was making the park safe. And one of the main ways you can make a park safer is to have all eyes looking into the park. As we took out all the parking, we actually gained quite a few acres of land, 0.7 acres of land back to the park, which is pretty significant. And we gained more parking spaces, moving them to the edge. So it was a win-win for everyone. And with that, I'll show you some fun renderings we did. So this is the northeast corner. That gateway element with the columns. You can see the splash pad and the lawn in the background. A quick glimpse of maybe what the architecture of the stage could look like. The large berm in the background wrapping around the pavilion, adjacent to the pavilion, wrapping around the lawn space. The thought also with this berm is that it's a sound barrier to the adjacent neighbors. So when there is a concert or something with a lot of sound, we want the neighbors to still be happy. So the berm is supposed to help be a sound barrier, capture the sound, but also be a really fun element within the park where you can get higher, you can lounge on it. It's just something unique to get you up. So that's the story here, and then the lawn pavilion in the background. You can see a little bit of maybe how these ponds would look. These bioretention ponds, they would have a lot of vegetation on the edge. Yes, you have a
How
question?
deep would these ponds be?
Do we have a?
These are still very conceptual, but the main pond is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 feet, so that's promote algae growth.
Okay.
In these ponds, except all the ponds except for the larger one, only the larger one is the one that would hold water all the time. The remainder of them would be more vegetation. So this is a great example. You can see a little bit of water in there, and maybe after a rain event, what it would look like. And you can see the splash pad. We also wanted to design for all seasons, so kind of a glimpse of what the park could look like with the charming Christmas tree and ice skaters in the background, and throughout all the seasons. This is something that the city could be proud of, showing our history and the future of Norman, and how the importance of park and outdoor recreation is to the community.
Go ahead.
This is an area showing the rain gardens. So here's the boardwalk. Where basically, imagine we're in the paddle boat in the larger pond, looking out. So you'll see the boardwalk area, the two bathhouse area, the WPA bathhouses, in that plaza with a large pavilion covering to provide some shade. A hint of what the amphitheater could be, vegetated in the background. And then you can see his lush trees in the background where the arboretum would be. This is going to be a gorgeous corner of the park. And then the final area we'll go over is the OPC, Opinion of Probable Cause. Yes?
I was just going to say, I was wondering where the art or opportunities for public art would be in this. I see a lot of scissor tail when I look at this.
Oh, yeah.
And that pond situation, I was curious if there'd be little life rings like there are at Scissortail and OKC.
Love that, yeah.
And I would say Unexpectedly Us, 2019 by Gabriel Friedman and Denise Duong was kind of like the public art opportunity that I could see in a park such as
Love
that.
that. Yeah, I think this park is desperate for some public art. I think this park is really wanting public art. It's wanting public education. It's wanting public events. All of it.
Is there an opportunity? Was Norman Arts Council on the stakeholder board?
They weren't actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what opportunity would there be? Like, is there a place identified for future?
Well, I think if this actually does become reality, it would be very similar to Norm Ford, will have 1% for art at minimum. So we would, as it comes to fruition, we would work the art council and the community group to find the best place for art and how to integrate that into the park.
Okay.
A lot of openness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chances.
Hotel motel tax.
Our pathways are also, I forgot to mention this, we have a hierarchy of pathways where the main circle path is 10 feet minimum. There's also an arcing, I'm going to go back actually, because this is very important. So we have the circle path, which is a main circulation, that's 10 feet minimum. And then also the connection from each of the corners, the main corners of Webster and James Garner, we wanted to make sure there was access and connection from both sides. So there's that is also a 10-foot minimum path. So I would envision art potentially being along these main pathways or a corner or somewhere very
Number
intimate
one
in the
right
garden. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And then all the other pathways are 6 feet minimums. But the goal is obviously to make everything ADA accessible.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes, the paving like around the stage area, is that just concrete or what is that?
So we are pricing it for special paving. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
You'll see that little gray area in front of the stage. We're looking at that being special paving. The thought is that that makes an accessible route and great seating for those that can't go in the lawn space, but also provides an opportunity for VIP seating or an orchestra or something, a hard surface to be able to host more diverse events. So that's the goal there.
A hard surface that is helpful for stormwater management?
Oh yeah, it
Instead
can
of
be.
just
Oh
regular
sure.
concrete?
Yeah, it could be anything from permeable pavers. It could be colored concrete, standard colored concrete. We put in a price for pretty much a wide range of special paving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that'll be a concern we'll probably all hear is just any any amount of concrete added to the park
Yeah.
being a concern. And then I think it looks great. I think the southeast corner having a sidewalk connection that continues going south towards the police department
Yes.
as part of the overall James Garner. is
Like
the
a
only-
crosswalk
Yes.
or okay, yeah.
is the only thing I noticed kind of
Sure.
missing. But other than that, yeah, I like it a lot and appreciate the work on it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peacock?
Thank you. Could you explain just the food truck park down here a little bit? Is the intent that they would park on Dawes, or would they actually be pulling into that paved area there?
So we discussed a few options where they could either pull in. I think we landed on they're going to park at Dawes.
Okay.
So we would have the connection points, like the electrical connections,
Gotcha.
there, right off the bat.
And then this little
edge.
plaza area would basically be seating.
Yeah,
for the
that's
food
all
truck.
pedestrian only. Mhm.
And then what's the kind of approximate height on this berm here at its highest point?
Sure. We right now have it somewhere between 10 to 12 feet.
Okay. I think that's the only, I don't even call it a criticism because it's not a criticism. The only critique I'll have is that I would love to see that berm be a little bigger even. And maybe not even in height, in terms of height, but just how it flows into the middle of the space and is usable more as a
Like
seating
wider.
backdrop.
Sure.
You know, instead of just being that little shallower hill. Maybe it's really steep on the back and gradual on the front. I'm not really sure, but
When it snows, people could slide
Slide
down.
right.
yeah.
Sleds.
Post about that
Sledding.
today.
Exactly. Yeah, make it a little more functional.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like 10 to 12 feet. You got plenty of functional height. Now just getting that runway on the front.
Yeah.
So-
And that was really determined by maintenance capability.
Okay.
So we always can make the slope flatter, which would give us more width.
Sure.
But that's where we landed at.
That makes sense.
And I'll add to that, like at Scissortail, that's, I mean, when my family goes up there, that's, my kids don't want to play in the playground, they want to go run up the hill and
Roll
run.
down. Exactly. Yep. Same here. So,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, I mean, I think it's amazing. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, that was the hill I was thinking of, was how tall is that one and how steep is that one? I remember when they, at the day of service, there were a bunch of OU students up there on the hill trying to figure out how to stay on the hill while they were planting. And it was comical to watch, and I thought, yep, it's a good time to be had by all, just on the size of that local topography.
So what was the feedback from the representative of Jazz and June regarding the stage
Yes.
and the size of the stage? Because
Sure.
yeah, that's they always bring in a stage because
Absolutely.
the amphitheater was never large enough.
Yes. So, for comparison, this stage is the same square footage as the one in Scissortail. To give you a visual comparison for size, her feedback was they are desperate for a green room, air-conditioned green room, and restrooms. They wanted the capability to have appropriate electrical connections for specialty lighting, for performancing and audio, all of that. So those were all things that we included in the budget to be able to cover. Yeah.
So they were
And then
happy with that?
orientation was a big thing too.
Okay.
So the reason they
Yeah,
bring the
'cause, you
stage
know,
in is
facing-
because the orientation was very
facing the
uncomfortable for
In June.
performers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we took their orientation that they prefer, which is that north-south, and then implemented it with our design.
Okay. Okay.
Can I just add something too about the stage? In the one in Scissortail, we designed that to accommodate like a lot of functions but we knew it wasn't going to always accommodate everyone. So in some instances, and maybe you guys have experienced this, when a larger venue comes in, they can set up an addition, like their own stage in front and use the permanent stage as back of house area. But it still houses those functions like the restrooms in the green room and houses the equipment and those things. So
Okay.
it won't, like, it's not big enough to provide for every function,
Right.
but it can
Yeah.
cover most of them.
Yeah. Nothing is 100%.
But luckily, there's a lot of flexibility with the hardscape in front, giving a flat surface. The stage is raised, so if a stage did come in, it'd be a really nice, smooth transition from new stage brought into current stage.
Now let's talk about paying for it.
I know I did.
that work?
I actually didn't get to finish this slide. I'll walk through the OPC really fast. So the vision the Parks Department has is aggressive and inspiring. They want this to be implemented between 5 to 10 years.
yourself, Jason.
And we kind of broke it up into 3 general groupings. So the thought is infrastructure package makes the most sense cost-wise to implement first, get all the infrastructure in. So that would be floodway cleanup, the main retention pond, moving the parking, reclaiming the road, things like that. Anything very infrastructure focused, any utility lines that need to be moved, that would come first. After that, we're calling it a placemaking package, so making it place, our park, our city park again. So bringing in some fun things, the bioretention ponds, Gateway Plaza, Sprayjet Plaza, all the signage, stuff like that. The amphitheater, lawn pavilion, those larger, big program elements that are going to make it place. And then finally wrapping up with the family and learning package, which is the renovation of the playground, enhancing the skate park, and items like that. The additional public restroom over there, really focusing on that area. Food truck court, stuff like that. So that's kind of the idea of how it would be implemented in 2 to 3 year phases. We also, with the cost estimate, got some interesting feedback from the managers meeting of, this discussion of there are some very infrastructure focused cost items. Maybe there's an opportunity for like a dual partnership through departments or funding that way. So everything in green is what we're itemized as pure park. That has to happen to make this park happen. And then the gray items are very infrastructure focused elements. Anything with street renovations, parking, utilities, all those items are listed in gray. And then on the second page, you'll see a grand total of, if this was to be designed and full built in the next year, that's the number that we're thinking of 26 million. And then below that, you will see our projection inflation. And this is why it's really important for the Parks Department to implement quickly, because every year that goes by, we're adding 3.26% to the total number. And that is their, goal to get this done as quickly as possible. We talked about several ways to multiply dollars as well. We think the best fit initially for majority of the payment is through Norman Forward 2. But we can also look at, because we do have this over a 10-year time frame, multiplying the dollars through grant funding. So we see this park being the most perfect candidate for the Land and Water Conservation Grant, which is a 50-50 grant match, and there's no cap. So there's a big opportunity to help get all the water elements paid for 50%. And that's another big reason why a large section of the stormwater quality items are in the second package, so we have time to apply for grants. We also think this is a great candidate for the Oklahoma Recreational Trails Grant with our larger pathways. They meet all the requirements for funding, which is an 80-20 match, so they would pay 80%, city pays 20%. Their requirements is that it's a concrete 8-foot wide path or asphalt 8-foot wide path. Either material is acceptable. That grant will cover 80% of the project. Now that one is capped at $320,000, which will get you around what we have experienced, somewhere between a quarter mile to half mile of trail. It covers site amenities on the trail, lighting on the trail, wayfinding on the trail, anything like that. So those elements can all fall into that as well, and you can keep applying consecutive years for that as well.
Councilmember Peacock.
Yes.
I mean, you basically buried the lead, what I was gonna say. I think this is not only a candidate for Norman Forward 2, but a potential crown jewel for that slate of packages. And so, to Councilmember Grant's point about public art, if it were a Norman Forward project, at 1% of public art, we're talking about a $260,000 piece of public art, which is a substantial.
A few pieces.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I think that's a great mechanism to get this project done. I'm not gonna say that we shouldn't pursue grants and other funding opportunities, but I think this is the kind of project that would get everybody excited about all the other projects on the Norman Forward slate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she's talking about grants. It's in, council has a very important step into that. So as soon as we get this, concept adopted, that, when we apply for grants, that puts us up that much farther on the list to actually be considered. So all this is just kind of leading to that fact of, hopefully,
Pulling
this
us
fits into a
into
bond
it.
package in the future and, helps us get grants. And even if you adopt it, once it gets adopted, this is when we start asking for capital projects in the park, this is the plan we'll be working towards.
Oh, a couple quick things. How much was our new all-accessible park over here, Jason?
The playground?
Yes,
It
playground.
was about 425,000.
Okay, and we're gonna spend about another 600,000? So we're definitely gonna incorporate everything, because all that's less than a year old.
Yes.
So we're
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
gonna take advantage of everything we have and not waste money there.
Yes, that was very important to the Parks Department to
perfect.
preserve that.
And the turf, is that sod?
You talking about?
Oh,
the-
yes.
But then you have
Yes.
$1 million of turf? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure we wouldn't buy
Yes.
an Astron turf and then
Oh,
pay
no.
$1 million Brooklyn.
No, yeah, that
That'd
is.
probably be a higher grade of,
Yes.
some kind of sports turf or
Yeah.
something we put in there that, they got all kinds of wicked things that,
Mm-hmm.
that our friends at Oklahoma State grows, that grows sideways instead of up and,
Yeah, can
it's-
take a
it
beating.
stays there for like a longer period of time.
And the very last thing I have, on the public comments and the public feedback, number 2, it said that they want the park to feel safer. And I think we all here know why people
Yes.
don't feel safe in our park right now. And I didn't really hear you mention anything about how this plan actually makes the park safer.
Yes.
Because what I see is a lot more trees, a lot more, larger growth plants around the pond areas, which creates dark spots, which creates blind spots. If we have people out here walking at night, that's not
Yes.
safer for me.
No, I think
So-
you have a great point. So, pedestrian lighting was one of the main things we were requested that people said that would make them feel safer.
What about the blue lights like OU has?
Oh yeah,
Where
we
you-
discussed that as well.
I mean,
Security
'cause I would-
cameras, all
Like I
of
said, I think
that.
it's an amazing design, but I'd definitely love to see, like I said, some more security.
Yeah,
For the people
security.
out walking where they can get instant police access and.
As a part of our design workshop, we actually had one-on-ones with leaders within each department. So IT was one of those groups that we met with, and we talked about comm capabilities, security capabilities. Right now, there's already a line that goes to the Skateworks, so we have a comm line out there that we can connect to for security cameras or blue lights and stuff like that. But the main thing was pulling the parking out. Now everybody's looking in when they come.
Right.
And then also the lighting was a big piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there pathways lit?
Yes. All the pathways.
That's one of the bigger things is security and keep referencing the Scissor Tail Park. But if you look at they have these awesome decorative, they can be considered art pieces type lights in there. And especially being located in a neighborhood, and we're talking about blue lights, so I want to make sure that we're talking about something separate. The blue lights,
Yeah.
I believe that Kayla is referring to, it would be these decorative lights that actually glow blue.
Yep.
So it's not a light pollution off
Right.
to our neighbors. The
Because
blue light,
summertime in
you're
Oklahoma with all
referring
the
to like
trees
the
and all
phone,
that,
your cell
Yes.
phone.
It
Yeah.
blocks the light.
Push the
I mean,
button
yeah.
and-
Cool.
Okay, what's the number of fixtures on the cost estimate, number of light fixtures?
200,
There's 200 light fixtures in this plan.
all pedestrian lights too.
And just so you recognize, as wonderful as so many of our parks are, when Jason and James Briggs saw this, they wept. We couldn't console them. They were so taken by what this could be. It was
There was a lot of text messages of excitement.
very well received.
That's why
Like
he's
the
wearing
Vineyard
glasses.
Park, it's like motion censored lights, right? Is it gonna have something like this at this park or no? Just perpetually lit overnight?
If we are able to do a low light pollution type light, we'll probably keep it lit all the time.
Yeah, a lot of our more larger community or regional parks that we've designed in the past, our lights will be set to either a timer or a sun sensitivity sensor, where once, like for example, on the timer, a certain time of day when you want your parks to be closed, the lights will dim to 25%. So it's enough for security, but not enough necessarily for people to hang out long term there. That tends to be what we do in a larger park like this. Or, we can also dedicate, maybe the larger circle has brighter lights, or we can kind of talk through that.
I'm supportive of moving it to a Norman Forward too, but what is the timeline on a Norman Forward?
6.5 years from now.
Yeah, what we're seeing and recognize what's going to take place on the ballot next Tuesday in Oklahoma City. You don't necessarily have to wait until the end for voter approval on the extension of Norman Forward. So potentially that question can be asked of the voters before the next 7-year period is up. What's most important is just to have the next plan, the next dollar amount calculated, and a slate of projects that's got input from all of our different community groups of interest, like Norman Forward original question had. So I don't think you necessarily have to wait to the end before the question's asked. Just once the list is ready, we can start surveying and getting some feedback from our public. You can go ahead and vote on the continuance before the expiration.
Isn't that 90% paid already?
90% done.
Done, yes.
I wish it was 90%, but I'll paid, but I'll add to what Daryl's saying. I think one of our mistakes with the original Norman Forward, which we're kind of getting to the end, we had all these grand ideas, but we did not have concepts before we went to vote. So we were guessing, in some cases badly guessing at how much a project would cost. And then once we got concepts and input from our community, what those projects would look like, we would go out and cost estimate, and we were off several $1 million. So you'll see with, as we start talking about Norm Ford 2, we have a Griffin Park that's probably about 60% done, but we're done with all our infrastructure. Reese Park, which is, has a master plan already done, infrastructure is complete, but we're probably about 30 to 40% done on that. And we just want to get all these plans in place, so we'll actually, when we go ask for money, we'll be more educated this time and hopefully be able to check more boxes and complete more of what we know this time than what we were guessing last time.
Have you tried to reach out to the Kaiser family? Maybe.
It'd
It's
be
a
a
lot less than
great phone
$100,000.
call. Once we have this beautiful concept, I think it's gonna adopt it. I think it's gonna attract a lot of interest. Hope it will. And another thing Kayla didn't mention too, this with it being a historical park, that opens up to a lot more grants that are offered through other areas, because there is a lot of interest in making sure we preserve our historical park areas.
The ability to put some real hydrology engineering to this park, I think every year we've seen the WPA stormwater channel. It reaches the banks and it's halfway across the street, and I'm sure they did the best they could way back then, you know, with the information they had. But now we've got modern conditions and the ability to, you know, take advantage of knowledge of modern conditions and put some real thought into those water features. Hopefully it'll make it a lot safer, because all of that WPA infrastructure will stay intact. Maybe we can just prevent it from being overwhelmed in a, you know, 3-hour rain event.
And not to mention how much it will, once the water gets our creeks and lakes, how much the water will actually be improved by the time it gets there, because of everything that they're placing in there to filter that stormwater.
Okay.
Without opposition, we would propose to put this on an agenda and have council adopt it as the master plan for Andrews Park. And then Mr. Olson has a green light to go start hustling park elements for us.
What's your pleasure? Do you- okay.
Yeah.
That'll probably be sometime in January when we put it on, in June.
Great work.
Exciting stuff.
All right. We'll give you a couple of minutes to get done, and then we've got to go into executive session, so.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure he did.
Is that why you're wearing glasses?
He was all
He's
misty.
emotional.
Oh, good.
It's a big dreamy park. Yeah, I remember the, playground equipment when I was a kid. Fiberglass and metal slides where you might burn my sister fell off the slides at the top, you know. That made me like. Yeah, she. They're like 15 feet.
We are still on the air.
All right. Before we move into executive session, Catherine, what you wanted to say something?
You'll recall this was sort of an as-needed executive session, and I can tell you that nothing has changed.
Okay.
Phone calls from 3M, I've had phone calls of the multi-litigation group, and the recommendation is still the same.
Okay.
Don't need discussion on that.
I don't think so.
There were-
This is
therefore-
the 3M.
Yeah.
If there are no objections, we'll just delete, omit,
Yep.
whatever the right word is for item 2.
Perfect.
All right.
Oh, yay.
That was easy.
All right.
I'm glad
Not
we
mad
did.
at it.
All right.
Talk during the break.
Anything other than that, we are adjourned.